No big worries. Hopefully at the end it's better. So real quick, perception versus reality. Everyone can relate to this. I think we heard from everybody. Some people think you're taking an investment and flushing it down the stool. Other people think you're going to make money off it, and that's half the battle. Because when you take a look at education across the world, technology has changed over about a 10-year period, 98% of baseline, in education only 2%. All the technology in the world in education still stumbling over it, and that's what we're doing at Oral Roberts University. Say, how do we stop stumbling over technology and micro-innovate at the right level and prove that this stuff really, truly does work? But again, I'm not using disruptive. I've chosen not to use the word disruptive because the truth is nobody wants to be disruptive. My family doesn't, faculty members don't, but they do want to change the paradigm, or they do want to transform, or they do want to leverage technology, and so we've chosen to go that route, and thus the paradigm shift you can see. It's really a belief system. Why do you want to do what you're going to do, and how do you shift that paradigm? So proven example number one, some of the people in the room are familiar with Lone Star College, University Park in Houston, Texas, Northwest Houston. Shaw Artelin is the president there, along with myself, the chief innovator for a couple of years, took what was formerly the Compact building and took a bond money and converted it into what we called the Mall of America of Education. And there you can see we won the first United States Department of Education Innovation Award, but it wasn't that. It was really, how do you take somebody who could be 15 years old and put them in high school in the same building? They can earn an associate degree, then they can earn a bachelor's degree, all the way up to PhD. And when they graduate, they can actually walk down the hallway and work at a copyright law firm or one of the top Fortune 500 companies there. So it was one of the first big phenomenal feats in education that I was part of. And the results from Lone Star really was to grow from 3,400 students in 2012 to 13,000 in 2018. A great success story, and I'm great friends with them. But now I'm at Oral Roberts University. Called to Oral Roberts University from Lone Star to say, hey, Mike, we need a chief information officer. And I said, I hate being a chief information officer. How many of you have been one, are one, and you say, yeah. And so for 4 months, the president kept saying, hey, Mike, we really need you. I said, well, I'm not interested. About the 6th month, I decided to come because of something he said. And it was really, he said, Mike, call yourself a global information officer, call yourself whatever you choose to, but we need to reach the outermost bounds of the earth with education. And I believe you can do that. And so I took that challenge up about 4.5 years ago, almost 5 years ago, and then we began this process. But here's one of the greatest quotes that I'm familiar with. The guy who invented the first wheel was an idiot. The guy who invented the other 3, he was a genius. And that's so true of innovation, that what you do one time in your life, as the person from Cisco just mentioned, guaranteed your first project may fail, but hang in there, because by the time you get done with innovation, you might just be able to leverage technology to change the world. So we began to do that after we refined the IT department to be more innovative / customer driven versus just working on mechanics in a data center. We opened a $8.5 million global learning center to reach the world, because no educational entity had ever been successful to date opening up bricks and mortar in Singapore, Abu Dhabi, China, because there's not enough students. Even though there's 7 billion people in the world, if you know your numbers, you'll find out only 327,000 Chinese want to come to an American education system. So if you take 4,000 universities, you're each going to get about 400 maximum. And so there's not enough money to justify going into India, China, or any other place and opening up a bricks and mortar. So he said, what if we took one building and flipped it around the world? Flipping a classroom is one thing, but flipping a university is a whole nother story. And that's what we really endeavored to do, is to take this building, outfit it with augmented and virtual reality, and flip the university around the world so everyone, or all digital roads of education, lead through the Global Learning Center. We already had the information that massively open online courses were not going to pan out, and you can look at the studies, and that is a fact. It's people sending a lot of content does not make good education. But furthermore, if you look at the hierarchy of the world, education is really way down here. Better than education or higher is actually training, where you learn to work with your hands. Better than training is knowledge, where somebody wants to hire you. Better than knowledge is actually intelligence, where multiple people want to hire you. Better than intelligence is actually wisdom, and then better than wisdom is truth. So education is only a starting point, but we've made it way too much. and especially if we follow the league or the Ivy League schools, it's paramount that you've got to do something, but the truth is only 6% of the world has a post-high school diploma, certificate, or degree. 6%. America, selfishly, we have 45.6% of our adults with a post-high school certificate, degree, or diploma. In Israel, 65%. And the rest of the world suffers because we don't open up access to the great intelligence that we can pass around the world. So let me tell you what flipping the university may have. I'm going to switch to the phone. I'm supposed to tell the person back. So I should be able to switch over and mirror my phone. And it'll show up on the screen here. Come on. On the Wi-Fi. Oh, no, I'm on the Wi-Fi. This is Jesse Plumey driving the robot around. But if you can peek in the room and tell them that I'm trying to flip over to the screen mirroring. Unable to connect, so somehow they don't have it connected back there. I'll try one more time here. There we go. Now you see it. So on the screen in front of you, I'm actually going to talk about fluidity. Forget mobility. Every tech company is trying to sell you more mobility, but it doesn't matter. The fluidity of education and technology will change everything, meaning that we live in a fluid world with fluid economies, fluid governments, fluid jobs. And if I can actually take now and put before you on this stage a solar system as an example, I'm scanning the floor here. And now I put the solar system here, and I'm going to lift it up above the class here. And that solar system is turning. You should see it on the screen. But I hit the record button in the center, and I'm now doing lecture, far better than MOOCs, holding my finger on the earth, telling you it moves at 77,000 miles per hour, and we stay in the same square foot. It's called gravity. But I can show you equilibrium now by walking out into the solar system. We don't have time to do that. But I will walk you through another room. Because I can bring up any room, whether it's a hospital room, law office, by just geofencing an area. And I'm going to walk up to this door, and as soon as I hit the button, I'm in a different world. And now I get to troubleshoot the space shuttle. And as I turn around, you'll see your world back there. I can now bring 100 worlds all together on the screen, representing every form of education available to the world. Now, I was just showing this to 87 students in Pakistan last week from that Global Learning Center, flipping the university around the world, but making it fluid on a smartphone. But what if I wanted to align it? Because the truth is, if Pokemon Go reached 50 million people in less than 40 days, why can't we do the same thing with education? It's simply because we haven't had the funding, and tech companies are interested in making money, not necessarily helping education. Okay, and I'll prove that to you momentarily. So if I go now and take and realign everything we would know about education and start using augmented and virtual reality, it'll take a second. The Wi-Fi is not super fast here. And behind me, you can see Jesse Plumey's driving the robot. We use multiple robots. Okay, it looks like it disconnected. Oh, there we go. Let me see. Okay, the Wi-Fi is not fast enough right at the moment. But what I have on my screen here is 500,000 different educational units that I can bring up with augmented reality, or not goggles, because nobody's going to wear goggles. Samsung ruined it by putting on the commercials that people wear goggles around their hairstyle. But these flip on your phone, you clip them on your phone, and you actually walk into that environment. I'll show it to anybody who wants to see it later. So I can do a plumbing challenge. I can turn on an engine all with my eyes, holding it up here and not wrapping something around my head. The world has changed, and we've been using this now for 2 years at Oral Roberts University. We went from 85 nations to 106 nations now represented. So Ed Waite, stand up. They can see you from India, Jesse Plumey from Nigeria. And Jesse Plumey, based on the innovation certification, just picked up 85 students in Nigeria last week because they feel like they're wearing ORU's letter jacket by being connected to innovation. He'll pick up well over that because in India is 25% of the world population. If we take one student from 106 nations, we're going to connect them for the right reasons. And so I thank everyone who's working on the ISO innovation at the right time in the history of the world, because that's what they dream of, being an entrepreneur or innovator. I'm going to switch off the Apple TV now. And go back to the presentation and quickly flip through. The flipped classroom, I won't read that for you. You'll get the presentation. But this is what a flipped university is. And you can look up my name, 1T in Mathews. You'll see hundreds of articles published, USA Today, Forbes, on a flipped university. What does that mean to the world? Forget MOOCs. It's just, and that's what you got to watch for. And whenever you see MIT, University of Texas at Austin, flagship something, it's more than likely a novelty. Good intentions, but a novelty at best. And over time, you can look it up, do this research, what has happened with that. So no offense to Cisco. I know we got some Cisco folks in the room here. But this is me at the United Nations in 2016 saying the Internet of Things will go down in history as the worst name ever given to technology. So in 5 to 10 years on that board back there, you'll see the Internet of Things was the worst named technology. Here's why. Because if it's only about things, if we do technology, if we change education and it's about things, we've missed the whole thing. It's about dignity. It's about freedom. It's about people. And so the Internet of People, for the people, by the people, may be a better adjective, and we're working on that diligently. We've trademarked a few names now. But again, I'm not out to compete against Cisco, who came up with that name. I'm just here to say, if you can open your garage door and turn up your water heater and call that a success, shame on all of us when we know that people around the world have not received an education yet. But we can do all kinds of things on the smartphone because it's about things, the garage door, the hot water heater, security cameras on the home. So flipping the university around the world. This is sort of the contrast of augmented and virtual reality. Some people, of course, calling it mixed reality when you blend it together. We were fortunate that somebody was willing to invest $1 million with augmented and virtual reality so we could really, truly reach the world. So from holding an eye solar system up on stage here to actually walking into those is a cool thing to actually do. And we're doing that at Oral Roberts University. And thus, this is the Chronicle of Higher Education, the magazine for higher education, or use on the digital frontier of making things happen. Numerous things that we get to report on that. Now, I'm going to go ahead, if I can have somebody click on the red button, because I'm not sure how to do it with this. If you can click on the red button, let's know if anybody can click on the red button in the media. Okay. Oh, there's flip back to the phone. Well, they're doing now. See if this comes up now. Okay. There you go. You got it. How many of you feel naked up here without your own laptop? Your own controls?
ORU stands at the alert
They just don't
and
get
on
it
the
flipped over
frontier
to play.
of a new dimension of education. Beside these beautiful buildings which have been built is some of the most advanced educational media ever installed.
Look, well, I'll come back to that because the point isn't that video, even though you can see all the augmented and virtual reality. So if they figure out, there they go. They got it. Go ahead and play it. Yep, play from right there is fine.
ORU stands at the alert and on the frontier of a new dimension of education. Beside these beautiful buildings which have been built is some of the most advanced educational media ever installed on an American campus. We're still living on the frontier in Oklahoma. We're not afraid. Our face is to the future, and our faith is strong.
That's the Global Learning Center the drone is going to come down on.
Our founder's vision was great. It's a vision that carries us to the uttermost bounds of the earth. We'll be using technology like virtual and augmented reality, so students will not only be studying in textbooks, they'll be experiencing what they are learning in real ways. Our students will be able to draw on the wealth of knowledge literally from around the world right here in Tulsa. They will leave this university equipped at the very highest levels of their profession. And that's where we're going in these next 50 years.
So these are all the technologies we have that are now being used over the last 2 years. All available on mobile phone, theater rooms, fully enclosed cubes. Any of the same items can come up across that spectrum. All right, thanks. If you go back to the PowerPoint. Oh, somehow it's not advancing. There we go. So on this here, really, you can see the rational reason for the enterprise AVR investment to say MOOCs haven't worked out. However, we believe if we can fluiditize intelligence and pass intelligence around the world to people's smartphone, we have a chance at getting people believing. So we have cohorts of students now who will connect on a robot that couldn't get their visa in time. People are waiting on their visa, they're waiting for money, and we have eliminated that. As 10 years of consistent growth at Oral Roberts University with a record high 97% placement through what we're working on. But again, the VR, AR is immersive, but it's from the phone to the dome, whatever flavor you want, because if you tie and tether people to equipment, you'll find out it doesn't work that well. We have a repository library of everything imaginable: panoramic, 360, augmented, virtual reality, mixed reality, immersive learning. You can filter it according to the discipline and the type that you want to play in. So our Global Learning Center is just a quick peek inside that Global Learning Center. But again, you can look up this article on eCampus News, why you should approach the fluidity in mobile technology, because miracles can happen. That's their print, not mine. And so as we take a look a little bit further at what we're trying to accomplish, what's in it for the world, not just for me. And there you see some of the statistics that we're talking about to try and tune up education so that everyone can afford an education around the world. So you think of a GPS, people, TomTom, Garmin, but what if we could map our journey? The education and career positioning system was designed at Lone Star College when I was there as well, and it continues to go on. You can see all kinds of information out there about that, game changers within education. Again, always trying to lose the word disruptive. I mean, I get it that some people need to use that word to excite people. Now, this here is Bloom's taxonomy, which has been around since 1948. And nobody has reached the top of Bloom's taxonomy in education until virtual reality at Oral Roberts University, in every discipline that is, because remember, understand, apply is what we teach people so that they can perform a job or pass a test. But the truth is, if you can analyze, evaluate, and create, you have a far greater opportunity to learn who you are, but what you're working with. And a deeper dive into that same thing, it goes in greater detail. And so we're pleased that at Oral Roberts University we've conquered a lot of these myths about education. In fact, those of you who are interested in reading why the whole ADD epidemic in America is caused by the education system, it's done by a gentleman named Sir Ken Robinson. It's called The Education Paradigm. Just look up Education Paradigm, Sir Ken Robinson. I'll take you through the 20-minute spiel. And it all starts this way, that the world has shifted, and we're trying to use technology to shift it, but it'll never work. The world has shifted from a linear thought pattern to a contextual thought pattern. Some of the great geniuses of the world have already proven that. And what that means is that the worst invention for education is actually the alphabet today. The alphabet A through Z, because in kindergarten you get to play with shapes and sizes and colors and experience and create, just like I'm showing with virtual reality. But as soon as you go to first grade and you can't put the linear structures together, not just the alphabet, but the syllables and the sentence structures, you start getting the finger pointed at you and you start getting potentially medicated. Because people do not want you outside that box. And the education system is erupting finally, and we've helped numerous K-12 schools finally realize. So all the global awards that we've won over the last 2 years, you can see them, some of them mentioned here, aren't to win the awards, it's to validate that we're on the right track for the right reasons. So we've won across the span of all the available awards that we could have won, but we're not winning them against a small school, against University of Wisconsin, Florida, Pennsylvania. Why? To prove a point that it's time for somebody who had no money possibly at first to begin, not just me, but the entity, and say, let's conquer the world because it's time to really change things. So now we finally get to the point, though, and I wrap up. 30 years ago, if you would have walked through the airport and saw a Best Buy vending machine, you would have thought, man, does that look out of place? But today, go to Houston, they're about every 300 feet. Why? It's profitable. You don't need a security guard. People don't wait in line. People put their digital fingerprint called their credit card in the machine. It drops out. It goes to Minneapolis, St. Paul, and tells them logistics has shifted by one part, and they get it replenished. And it's the greatest move almost in our day, but it's only about parts and things again. And so Wolf University is part of Oxford University. Raise your hand if you've heard of the first blockchain university. Look it up. Just type in the first blockchain university. Oxford University started. It's called the Blockchain University. Well, you'll be able to get all your courses through a reputable college like a vending machine. And there's a reason why that's happening, but I won't go into great details behind it. So there is that door on our campus, but also the first blockchain evidence that we can now help people hold their credentials all the time, make it fluid so that their employer or potential employer can see it at all times. If you want to see that later, I'll show that to you. So it is completely plausible today. Forget Bitcoin, throw it out, it'll go away. Let me say this metaphor to you. Bitcoin is to blockchain what Mosaic was to the internet. Mosaic was the first web browser that had to disappear. Netscape, AOL browser come out. Bitcoin will disappear, but blockchain will live on. And I have all the evidence to help if those of you are wondering, but don't confuse the two terms. So with blockchain being like a digital vending machine, it's completely time that we can allow people to take education anywhere in the world, but actually match their personalities and values and interests to their career. Hobson's did a report in 2014 and found out that 80% of all students who just graduated regretted the major they took. Can you imagine that? Investing all this time in K-12, all this time in a university, and you're dissatisfied with your major. Why? When we have all the technology available to help people profile themselves and self-navigate through this morass that we call education in the jungle of connecting careers to that educational pattern. So we are delighted to report today, there'll be a media release probably coming out tomorrow from Oral Roberts University, that we are part and have signed up on being part of the LMS system for innovation. But we're also connecting to the World Education System to issue merit badges and blockchain credentials to those people who earn their first innovation certificate. Because the world doesn't believe they're good enough. If you go into other countries and say, well, do you have a 4-year degree? Well, I don't have enough money and I'm not smart enough. I said, that's a lie. You are smart enough. And eventually education will be free. Why? Because the human rights, 30 of them developed in 1948 by Eleanor Roosevelt in the United Nations, one of those includes that says education is every human's right. But now student loan debt has crept beyond everything else because the system is broken. And we're out to fix that system by having an educational vending machine that allows anyone to be privileged to start accessing content, top quality content, but be awarded and rewarded, but always carry their credentials with them because they paid for it. How many of you have waited a couple weeks to get your transcript from another school? That's impossible because you invested your time and you invested your money and they're holding your record. So I was part of Obama's open records law in 2013 that every parent and student has the right to that record. Unfortunately, education hasn't read that memo yet. There's my contact information if you have any comments, questions, or want to see some of the things I wasn't able to show up here. Thank you so much.